wish you could use your super to buy your home? Home ownership is a significant life milestone and a dream for many Australians. However, with the ever-increasing property prices and rising costs of living, it's not always easy for first-time homebuyers to break into the market. This is where the First Home Super Saver scheme comes into play. I'm just going to call it the Super Saver now because saying First Home Super Saver scheme all through this video is hard. There is a lot to take in this video, so make sure you check out my website where you can read all about this scheme or download the resources I have for you. It's also one of those things that if you get it wrong, it can be very costly. So reach out if you need help and before you embark on using this Super Saver. The Super Saver scheme is an initiative that leverages the power of superannuation funds to help individuals reach their home ownership goals. The Super Saver was introduced by the Australian Government to help first home buyers to save faster using the lower taxed environment of their superannuation fund. The scheme allows you to make voluntary contributions to your superannuation, and later you can withdraw those contributions along with the associated earnings to help buy your first home. So here are 10 things you need to know about the Super Saver. Number 1 is you can get started saving for your first home in your super fund by making either voluntary concessional contributions, so the before tax contributions, or the after tax non-concessional contributions into your superannuation fund. These can be in the form of salary sacrifice arrangements with your employer or direct contributions from yourself. It is important to remember, though, that the compulsory super contributions your employer makes for you and any spouse contributions are not eligible to be used for the Super Saver. Number 2 is you can contribute up to $15,000 per financial year and a total of $50,000 across all years under the super scheme. This is an individual basis, so a couple purchasing a house together can access up to $100,000 using the super scheme. Your associated earnings are on top of this. The maximum you can have released is the sum of your eligible contributions and the deemed earnings associated with those contributions. The eligible contributions are 100% of the non-concessional contributions made to your super fund and 85% of your eligible concessional contributions. It's only 85% of the concessional contributions because 15% of those contributions has been paid to the tax office in contributions tax. So it's actually no longer part of your superannuation balance. Number 3, to be eligible for the Super Saver, you must have never previously owned a home in Australia, including an investment property, vacant land, or even a commercial property, unless you're making an application on financial hardship grounds. You must also not have previously requested the ATO to issue a Super Saver release authority. And you must be at least 18 years of age to apply for the release of your contributions under the Super Saver rules, although you can actually make eligible contributions before you're aged 18. There is no requirement for you to be an Australian citizen, an Australian resident, or even an Australian resident for tax purposes. It is important, though, to remember that you must not only be a first home buyer, but also that you need to live in the property you purchase or intend to as soon as practical after purchase or completion of construction. You also need to live in the property for at least 6 months within the first 12 months you own it. Number 4 is the rules and limits for the Super Saver apply on an individual basis. This means that couples, siblings, or even friends can access their own eligible Super Saver contributions to purchase the same property. If any of you have previously owned a home, it will not stop anyone else who is eligible from applying. So when you're ready to buy your first home, you can apply to release the contributions and their associated earnings. The amount released will be less any tax payable, but the tax rate will be at least 30% below your marginal tax rate, providing a great tax advantage. Number 5, you can withdraw your savings when you're ready to enter the housing market. You do not need to have found your home yet. However, after you have withdrawn the money, you have 12 months to sign a contract to buy or construct a home. If you need longer, you can request a 12-month extension. If you don't buy a home after your time expires, you can either recontribute the released amount back into superannuation or pay tax equal to 20% of the concessional amount released. This removes the tax benefit you received from using the super saver. Number 6, just like most withdrawals from superannuation, the exception of course is pension payments made once you've reached the age of 60, there's a tax bill to pay when you withdraw your money from your superannuation fund using the super saver. Both the assessable super saver amount and the withholding tax need to be declared in your tax return in the financial year in which you request a release from your superannuation for the super saver. This may not be the same financial year in which you actually receive your super saver money. So that's a little catch to watch out for. Number 7, the associated earnings on your super saver savings are deemed using a formula calculated by the ATO, not the actual investment earnings on your super contributions. These associated earnings are part of the calculation used by the ATO to work out how much you can withdraw under the super saver. Under the scheme rules, the ATO calculates your associated earnings using what's called the 90-day bank bill rate plus 3%. The 90-day bank bill rate moves in line with the investment market. Number 8. It is important to remember that it's not your superannuation fund that determines what super contributions count towards the super saver and the calculation of the associated earnings. It's actually the ATO, and it will then advise your super fund on the amount that can be released when you apply to withdraw your super saver savings for your first home deposit. You must apply for and receive a super saver determination from the ATO before you sign the contract for your first home or apply for release for your super saver amount. Number 9, amounts released as part of your super saver won't be used to reduce the account balance of your higher education or trade support loan. However, if you have an overdue income tax debt which includes the compulsory repayment of your super loan, then part of your released super saver amount will actually be used to pay this compulsory repayment as it forms part of your income tax debt. And lucky last, number 10. Your eligibility for the super saver will not be affected if you use other state or federal home purchasing schemes. While the traditional view of superannuation is centred on retirement, the super saver highlights the versatility of these funds. But there's lots of traps that you need to be very careful of, including that you need to notify the ATO within 28 days of signing a contract to purchase or build a home. Getting even one of these steps wrong may mean the funds you intended to use for your purchase of your first home are trapped inside your superannuation fund until you reach retirement age, and you may find yourself needing to start saving for that elusive deposit all over again to get into your first home. To ensure the best outcomes and avoid potential pitfalls, I always say seek professional guidance before you begin.